Okay, so we're not forgetting about the fact that Bergdahl was tortured and beaten and kept in a small metal cage during those 5 years in captivity. That's one of the reasons, or the reason, why the judge figured he'd served enough when it came to being locked up. So now let's get to that question of, well, what now? Which is now a good time to bring in Andrew Bartlein. So Bergdahl's convictions here, Andrew, have been vacated. Does that mean this is the end of this? Does this just go away? What next?
Not exactly. And to be clear, this isn't an acquittal either, Brian, when we're talking about what happens next. It really is more of a do-over. This opinion is far from clearing him from his charges. Rather, it says the process would need to start over again and start properly, if, of course, it even gets that far the second time around. We talked to retired Idaho Attorney General David Leroy, and he says both sides, though, might have had enough.
It needs to be understood that we have civilian courts and we have military courts, but occasionally there is an intersection between the two. A federal civilian district judge also has the ability to make sure that the procedures in the military court were proper, constitutional, and fair.
What happened exactly with this decision that a judge came out with today?
Well, the judge's decision from the district court in the District of Columbia ruled that the judge apparently had or could have had an improper influence because he had applied for a civilian judgeship at a time when the commander-in-chief had called Bergdahl a traitor.
So we get a traitor named Bergdahl, a dirty, rotten traitor.
Are you talking about President Trump?
President Trump and Senator John McCain. McCain said that he would convene congressional hearings if the punishment wasn't severe enough.
And this judge was looking for a job that Trump essentially had the power over.
This judge had applied for a civilian judgeship, which requires presidential nomination and Senate confirmation.
To vacate this conviction now, what does that mean exactly?
The vacation of this conviction is, in effect, a do-over. The Army is free to prosecute him again, to reinstate the case, or to negotiate another plea bargain. Bergdahl, by the same token, is free to ask for the reinstatement of his rank, back pay, arguably, as well as ask his dishonorable discharge to be changed to an honorable discharge if he chooses not to go back into the Army.
But there's a risk with this, is there not? Because it could go the other way. Doing this over again, could there not now be a punishment that was worse than what was originally decided on his previous conviction?
Well, Bergdahl has received no jail time, no time in the brig, and a dishonorable discharge. If he were to go back to a brand new trial, potentially his dishonorable discharge could be upheld, and he could be levied other penalties like a loss of back pay and even time in jail, even at this late date.
Is that a possibility where both sides, after this conviction's vacated, look at each other and say, maybe this isn't worth our time anymore, let's just call it what it is and move on? It's
reasonable to presume, therefore, that the parties will work out some other kind of negotiated plea arrangement where some penalty is had, but the matter is put behind both the Army and Bergdahl.
So why is this happening now, 6 years after a conviction? Well, that's how long it took to exhaust all military court appeals before making its way to this district court judge in Washington, D.C. Any new trial, if the U.S. Army chooses to prosecute, would go back to military court, which is important to note, Brian, that it came through this 63-page opinion. I mean, this thing's huge.
It's hefty.
It is. And in this, it doesn't say specifically that that judge was not impartial. It just says there was an appearance of it,
right,
which seems to be enough at this point.
It's worth pointing out, we did try to reach out to Bowe Bergdahl's parents, and you did reach out to his attorney.
Yep, spoke with us briefly, said they're gratified by the opinion, but still looking through the documents.
All right, so there's still more to this. Another chapter possibly for Bowe Bergdahl. Thank you very much, Andrew.